Having a nice collection of wargaming terrain to fight your battles on does wonders for making your games feel more special. The thing is, wargaming as a hobby isn't particularly cheap, and understandably, a lot of people rather spend their hard-earned cash on more models for their armies, rather than terrain. In this series of videos, I'll be reviewing some of the different options out there to help you decide which terrain is right for you. Welcome to the channel. I'm GM Gregor, and in this video I'm going to be looking at some terrain I never thought I would buy, let alone review, yet here I am. I'm talking about the Badlands Terrain Set from Gale Force 9. If you like what you see in this video and want to see more, drop the video a like and hit that subscribe button. The Battlefield in a box range has been around for a few years now, and until recently I never gave it, particularly the Badlands set here, much thought. It's very simple, and even though it comes pre-painted, as an old school hobbyist, I personally thought it was a bit too expensive for what it was, especially as back in the day I had made very similar looking pieces of terrain using polystyrene, a hot wire cutter, PVA glue and some sand, and it looked just as good, and it cost me a fraction of the price. Simply put, I was not the target market. However, now my situation is different. I've got more responsibilities and demands on my time. I don't have all my hobby tools and gear that I used to have back in the UK, and my wife and I needed a new desert themed board up and running for the newest wargame we're about to try. I wanted to spend my limited time painting the forces for this new wargame instead of painting terrain for a new desert board. In other words, I found myself in the target market. There's only 4 products in this specific range we're looking at today, so I bought the set. Let's take a look at what you get and decide whether these are worth the cost and whether you can do anything to improve what you're getting. First things first though, how much are these going to set you back? The 2 larger sets, the Badlands Plateau and Badlands Bluff, retail at $35 each in the US and £25 in the UK. The 2 smaller sets, the Badlands Pillars and Badlands Tours, both retail for $25 US each or £18 sterling. As far as wargaming products go, these are pretty cheap. However, when you buy them all together, it might cause you to hesitate for a moment, simply because with terrain that can be easily made out of trash materials, do you really want to spend $120 on this instead of buying more miniatures for your games? Let's open the boxes and take a closer look. The first thing that you notice with this terrain, other than the fact it's already painted, is that the quality is really high. These are solidly made and have a decent weight to them, and despite being relatively simple, have a good amount of detail on them. On this large piece, you can see the terrain has a very convincing rocky texture, and if you look closely, you can see extra detail that has been added in the form of smaller rocks and pebbles. The piece comes already mounted on a base, and the overall impression is that it's very sturdy. This particular piece is the Badlands Bluff, and one of the 2 larger terrain pieces. It's large enough to block line of sight to many different types of units, and tall enough to provide your models with a height advantage if the game you're playing has those kinds of rules. 2 of the sets in this range feature smaller, scatter pieces of terrain which may or may not block line of sight, but are generally there to help provide a bit of cover to your units and make the board look more interesting. If we take a look at some of the pieces from the Badlands Tours set, you'll see they come in a variety of shapes and sizes. I do like these, particularly this piece here, as it looks great and is big enough to still be functional, although some pieces like this one here are a little small, so really only function as eye candy for your terrain board. This piece here looks a bit weird admittedly. I'm not entirely convinced by its shape, but like the other pieces here, it has fantastic detail and texture, the importance of which I'll get to in a bit, and it also comes mounted on a sturdy base, so it's not going to topple over easily in the game, so there's little risk of it damaging your models. The scale is also pretty flexible as well. The boxes state that this terrain is being designed to work with model scales between 25 and 35mm, and I would agree with that. I'm honestly pretty pleased with what I've got for my money's worth, but I do have some slight issues with these products. Now, this is more of a personal taste thing, but I do feel they're a little bland, and I'm not a massive fan of the deep red colour these have come painted in. Now, to be fair, even though it doesn't say it on the product boxes themselves, the website has these listed as Mars terrain. Looking at the pictures on the website, however, they're painted in a more of a rocky brown colour, so I thought I could get away with using them on the desert themed board, but the final product looks too different in my opinion. Whilst they would indeed work great on a Martian themed board, as you can see on my desert map, they stick out more than they should. And like I said, whilst the texture is great, the pieces are a little plain and they could stand to be pimped up a bit. Thankfully in my case, I had the paints to fix this, and thanks to the fantastic texture I mentioned earlier, these pieces are very quick and easy to dry brush, meaning it only took a few minutes of effort to improve. Here's one I painted up earlier, and in my opinion, fits my board much better and is closer to the look I was going for. You can even do what I've done here and add some tufts of static grass in the areas where you would find plants in real life, just to add that little bit of extra detail and life to the model. It would be unfair of me to consider this a negative. The product pictures on the packaging themselves is accurate, even if it looks a bit different online, and like I said earlier, this is purely a taste issue. Even though personally I found it to be a bit bland, for some people, the deep red is going to be exactly the look they want, and it barely took me any time at all to customize the terrain to better fit my needs. If you're curious to see how I painted my terrain, the next video in this playlist is a short tutorial demonstrating the process. So, when all is said and done, is this terrain worth buying? If I was in the same living situation that I was in years ago, I probably would have said no. Terrain like this is easy to build from scratch, and I did so myself when I was living in a house, had all the prerequisite tools, and the materials and the time needed to make terrain just like this. However, currently I'm living in an apartment which is rapidly filling up with miniatures, and I don't have access to the same tools and materials I once did. Sure, I could easily go out and buy some for less than what it cost me to buy all of this terrain, but then I run into the problem of storing the tools and leftover materials once I'm done, not to mention the extra demands of my time these days for all the extra responsibilities that adulthood brings, and as fun as it is, making terrain can be a messy process. If lack of space and time sounds like problems you have as well, then I can wholeheartedly recommend this terrain as a purchase. Yes, it is a little pricey for what you get considering you can make terrain like this for very little, but what you're really paying for is convenience. You are paying for someone else to make and paint the terrain for you, so that all you need to do is hand over money.
Shut up and take my money!
If you are at a stage in your life where paying for convenience is a deciding factor, or like many hobbyists, you want to spend your limited time painting your armies and not terrain, then by all means, go out and buy this set of products if you're looking to make a desert board or Badlands themed terrain set. It's good quality, and I've personally found the time saved justifies the price. However, if convenience isn't a huge issue for you, with terrain this simple, I would just say make it yourself. There's not really much more to say other than that. This is simple terrain, and the process of buying and using it should be simple as well. In my case, I ended up repainting the terrain, but it was a super quick and enjoyable process, so personally it didn't affect my perceived value of the range. In conclusion, I like these a lot, and I will likely buy more from Gale Force Nine's other terrain ranges in the future. That brings us to the end of this video. If you stayed until the end, thank you for watching this long. Please give the video a like if you enjoyed the review, subscribe if you want to see more, and let me know your thoughts about this range in the comments. Is this something you're interested in buying, or have you already bought it and did it meet or fail to meet your expectations? Let me know, and I'll see you all in the next video.